Tim.
Yes.
Say hi to Beyonce for me.
What's your topic?
So my topic, it's very appropriate for our guest here, is voice acting.
Ooh.
So
Oh, you mean Dave Fennoy from DaveFennoy.com.
oh, there you go. There you go.
I'm not drinking out of the cup, Dave. Sorry.
God damn it, Nick.
So I'm really interested in this because it's obviously a really big part of our lives, whether or not people realize it. Like, people watch a lot of cartoons, play a lot of games. Like, voice acting is everywhere, commercials, all this stuff. And I don't think, until you understand what goes into it, I don't think anyone knows what goes into it. Because I feel like most people would think you just go and you read off of a piece of paper and that's it. And it's like, oh, you're just getting paid to talk. That can't be hard.
Oh, my husband does funny voices. He always thinks about doing that.
I get that all the time. At least once a week, somebody, oh, hey, wow, voice acting. Well, I can read. I talk every day. How do I get into that? And
You're like, for $500 at DaveFennoy.com, I can teach you how to get into it.
Well, actually, I do some teaching. I guess teach up at Voice Tracks San Francisco, and I'm going to be teaching for Terry Berlin, who's a casting director down here, and doing some private lessons. But you really have to be an actor. You really have to have a sense of I call it taking the words off the page. Because there's a thing, and you'll notice actors, when they're good actors and they pick up a piece of paper on camera and they're supposed to be reading, and it sounds like they're reading it like this because that's how most people read. Most people don't read like I'm just talking to you.
Right.
And the idea is you're taking somebody else's words, you're filtering them through you and delivering that message as if it were you or the particular character you're playing.
That is awesome.
So then,
it's
for where did you start on this journey? You said you had to be an actor first. Did you go in thinking, I'm going to be just an actor?
No,
And then,
well, my journey was like with most things. My training really started as a child. I didn't know that's what I was training for, but I was a child actor. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and there's a community theater there, Karamu House, and my parents wanted to expose me to many things, so I went to Karamu, and I took modern dance, and I took music, and I took theater. And I acted in a number of plays as a child there. When I went to high school at Hawkins School for Boys. Hi, guys.
Shout out Hawkins.
I was
The Fighting Hawks.
I was
Hawkins.
That's
what
the
they do.
Hawks. Yeah.
Damn right you were.
Red and gray all the way. I was president of the Theater Society, and we did plays. I directed some plays and whatnot. But I also started playing music at the same time. I went off to college as a theater major, but I quit after a year and a half, went on the road playing music, man. And then I went back to school for music, and I thought I was going to grow up to be a rock and roll star. I was writing songs and singing. That didn't happen. I wanted to stay close to music, so I went into radio. I became a disc jockey.
You have a good radio
And
voice,
I was a disc jockey in San Francisco. I worked under the name Billy David Ocean at several stations, including KDIA, the boss of the Bay, and KSOL 107.7, KSOL, more music, KSOL.
Wait, back up for a second. Why did you go under that pseudonym?
Well, when they hired me at KSOL, I worked there a couple of times. When they hired me, the day I was going to go on, he said, well, look, we have Dave Padilla, who's still doing news on KCBS in San Francisco, and still a very good friend of mine, and Dave Gilton, who would be a really good friend of mine if I knew where he was and we were in contact. But
if we hadn't completely lost touch, he'd be a great friend of mine.
Awesome.
But Dave Gilton and Dave Padilla were doing news on the station, and the program director, Marvin Robinson, told me, look, the last thing in the world we need is another Dave or David on this station. So I kept coming up with names, he kept shooting them down, and just before I drove to the station to do my very first shift overnight, he said, I got the name for you, Billy Ocean. So I went on this, and I'm 107.7 KSOL. Hi, I'm what is it? Oh yeah, Billy Ocean, and that was my first couple of times with that name, and then a few months later, the singer, Billy Ocean, came out with Caribbean Queen.
Mm-hmm.
Caribbean Queen.
And I kept getting that call on the It's okay.
Sorry. You got to stop me, otherwise we get the copyright strike. We're too on.
So, I closed my eyes for a second,
another
I was there.
bar, we would have been in trouble. But I would get that call from yo, dude, you got a hit record out. Why are you still on the radio? And I said, no, it's another guy named Billy Ocean. He said,
Right.
You guys have the same name? How did that happen? And I said, what's your name? Fred Johnson. Well, Fred, do you think someplace on the planet there might be another Fred Johnson? So to avoid more calls like that, I added Billy David Ocean in there. And for the rest of my career in the Bay Area, I was Billy David Ocean.
Wow.
What names did you want, though? Which ones did they say?
You know what? I don't even remember the names I wanted, but they were probably equally corny.
So was it that? I mean, so doing that on radio and like doing that so much and talking, is that when you were like, I should do voice acting?
Well, you know what? I kind of discovered it was kind of a forest for the trees kind of a thing. You hear voices all the time, and you could actually go through life and never think about being a voice actor because voice acting is so omnipresent.
Right.
It doesn't really stand out to you until you like, oh, wow, I guess everybody that's voicing something on television or radio or on the phone or in my car or on the internet is getting paid to do that. And I knew that at some point I wasn't going to want to spin hits for teeny boppers anymore. And a friend of mine, he was leaving the radio station one day, and hey, where you going, man? He said, well, I'm going over to the city. We were in Berkeley. I'm going over to the city to, do some voiceover. I actually make more money doing that than I do on the radio. And that kind of, that
Sparks
was the
it.
light
I'll do
bulb.
it.
Yeah.
I didn't do any, and that was early in my radio career. I really didn't do anything about it for a couple of years. And, but by the end of the 80s, you were all children, man. By the end of the 80s,
Ghostbusters 2 was coming out. Things were happening.
by the end of the 80s, I decided, you know what? It would be fun to be doing cartoons and TV promos and that kind of stuff. And I started taking some classes, and I made up my mind that as soon as I made as much money in voiceover as I was making in radio, I was going to dump radio and move into voiceover. KSOL, however, had another plan for me. In February 1990, they fired the whole staff, which happens a lot in radio. As a matter of fact, if you are in radio and you haven't been fired, you're not really in radio. But I had taken some classes before and with a agent from down here in LA, and she said, look, if you ever want to come to LA, we'd love to represent you. I didn't realize what a blessing that was at the time, because that's one of the toughest things to do in voiceover is get representation.
Yeah.
Really?
So I called her up after I'd been fired saying, well, were you serious? She said, sure. Put together a new demo tape and come on down. So for almost a year, because I was married at the time, had a kid, for almost a year, I would drive down to LA
Oh my God.
on, Sunday night or Monday morning, audition, and drive back on Friday evening or
man.
Saturday morning.
Ugh, that's hell in your car.
Yeah, I stayed.
A lot of miles.
In your life, in your relationship.
No, I'm just thinking about the car here. There's a lot of gas money right there.
Priorities. Priorities. I stayed for a month on a buddy of mine's couch. I stayed for another month on my uncle's couch. Finally got a place with another voice actor from Northern California that was trying to do the same thing. And after about a year, I was able to move my family down and buy a little house in Pasadena. And things kind of took off.
That's awesome.
Without giving away like the tricks, what does a class for voice acting look like? And what do you even teach them? Like, how does that happen?
Well, what you're trying to teach them is how to make the words their own, how to get away from a reedy sound. Most people have a hard time taking reading words here, but touching people here and here. A lot of people, having spent a lot of time in radio, you learn a bad habit of making the words sound good by your inflection of voice. So you're doing things like this all the time.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah.
Well, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Game Over.
You're reading really bad copy. You got phone numbers and directions to give and price points, and so you're doing that kind of thing, and that's not how people talk. That's not who people believe. So you want to pull away from that and get closer to, who are you as a real human being, or who are you as the character that you're playing.
Is that true for commercial stuff too, though?
Absolutely.
Really?
When you think about the commercial voices you hear, you connect with those voices in one way or another. Sometimes even if you don't like them, it's a connection because...
Flo from Geico.
You don't like Flo?
Flo's hot.
Nah, I like Flo.
Come on.
But it was when the beginning I didn't like Flo.
Why didn't
when
you
she
like her in the
first came
beginning?
around, she was a little annoying, and now I love her.
Yeah.
Now she's one of the family.
But
I don't
see-
like these commercials where she's all in all the different makeup, like she's doing the
It's
Eddie
freaking
Murphy
me out a
thing.
little bit.
Yeah.
No, not a fan.
Those are not my favorite Flo commercials, but I love Flo.
Yeah.
And by the way, she is the wealthiest, best paid commercial spokesperson
I saw
out
that.
there,
Yeah.
to the tune of millions.
Wow.
And because she's very effective. There's something that we relate to
Yeah.
with Flo.
She's smoking hot. She's smoking hot.
Well,
I'm just-
that's not
She's
one
cute.
of the things I would say. She's
very
reasonably
relatable.
attractive lady.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I feel like that's good casting, right? That's someone that came in and said,
She's the every
this
woman."
person's very relatable. She's cute
and she's funny.
and she's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the AT&T Girl.
Oh, she's
AT&T
from
girl.
YouTube.
She's from YouTube, and I like her. Milana.
Milana.
Oh yeah, and she's once again,
Google it.
she's just kind of a natural, everyday kind of a person that you can relate to. Sometimes being too beautiful isn't what's going to work.
I like the guy who plays the football player in every commercial. His name's Peyton.
Manny?
Zing! Got him! But he's really good at commercials. Papa John's is not good at commercials. Papa John needs to stop doing commercials.
No, he's awesome with Peyton. So what were some of your earliest gigs? Like, what kind of gigs were you getting early on?
Wow, the first gig I got, I was still in San Francisco. I had just gotten an agent, and I auditioned for the California Lotto. And I got that gig, and it was early in when the California Lottery just began. So I was very excited about that. I used to be the voice up there of Marine World Africa USA, every concert in the summer, all their concerts.
That's awesome.
And I did a commercial. I still have some of my best work. Marine World Africa USA. It was just about visiting the place, and it was kind of come to Marine World Africa USA, and it was beautiful spot. As a matter of fact, I won a Jumbo Prawn Award for that. Wow, I forgot about that.
What's a Jumbo Prawn Award?
I don't know if they still have it, but there used to be an advertising award in San Francisco in the advertising community called the Jumbo Prawn. And I won a Jumbo Prawn Award for that Marine World Africa USA commercial. But it was kind of a funny award show because even though you were nominated and won, you had to pay to go, and you had to pay for your award.
Classic
Damn.
award.
So
shows.
I never went to the award show, and I never picked up my Jumbo Prawn Award, but someplace.
But it's out there.
someplace
Somewhere.
It's out there.
So can we start a Kickstarter right now to get him his Jumbo Prawn?
Yeah, we're gonna get you that Jumbo Prawn Award, Dave. That's
How
coming
much
home.
what are we talking here? What do we need to come up with?
And that's from like 1989.
Oh man, there's gonna be like interest on that thing.
Yeah.
Just inflation, too.
It's a lot.
So what are, like, I think I know the answer to at least one of them, I would think, but what are some of your, like, most memorable or your favorite gigs that you've gotten, like the ones that you really, really stick with
Well,
you?
being the Hulu guy for 7 years was a gas. And funny story how the gig got gotten. I have an agent, and actually I have several agents all over the country. But I was at a party, and this guy sitting next to me, and he actually wanted to be talking to this girl who wasn't interested in him, so
You're the next best thing.
I was the next best thing. Well, I was right there. So I
Yeah.
said, hey, how you doing? What's your name? And I said, oh, Dave. What do you do? I do voiceover for a living. Oh, well, I'm a producer, and there's this new thing called Hulu, and they're looking for a voice. Why don't you give me your email? And, you never know. And a week later, I was a Hulu guy.
That's
Damn.
awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How fast it can happen.
For me, like you talked a second ago about, like people taking voiceover for granted. And I remember when Job from Telltale was trying to hook us up, and he's like, oh, he's the voice of Lee Everett. It's going to be this great character. You need to meet him. He's also the Hulu guy. And I was like, what the fuck is the Hulu guy? And he's like, oh, do you watch Hulu? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, this commercial is brought to you with Hulu. That's him. He does that. And I was like, oh. And it all clicked into place. Like, I guess that is one guy's voice that does that all the time.
That is a legendary voice.
It never, ever clicked. And like, that was the very start of Up at Noon and everything we were doing on IGN and that. And like, for me, that was when I really, for everything, started connecting the dots. And like all of a sudden you kept hearing about Nolan North and Troy Baker and all these different people. And it's interesting, I don't know how you feel. I feel like there's been this decided movement where like now video games in particular, because that's what we cover all the time, and even cartoons are celebrating the actors behind that.
Yeah.
And I guess it's the fact that the internet gives you guys a platform and an ability.
Well, I think it's more than just the internet giving you a platform, because you've had cartoon voices have been heroic for a long time, and
Sure.
the conventions and whatnot they've been going. Voice actors in video games are just beginning to get that kind of notoriety, partially because the industry is so young. You're really talking about an industry with voice actors that started in the mid-90s. So that's fairly young. But and because video game companies used to, we need a male voice. You, come here.
Yeah.
We need an old guy. Is your dad retired?
Mega
Can
Man.
we, we need a gal. Get the secretary in here. That used to be the way they did it, but as gamers have become more sophisticated and in their desires for entertainment, what kind of entertainment they want, they've started hiring better actors, hence Troy Baker, Nolan North, Jennifer Hale, myself, and there's way too many actors I'm not mentioning, and they're going to be pissed off that I didn't mention their name.
Ashley Johnson's punching her hat right now.
But
Why do I have a hat?
but also
Where'd I
just
get these hats from?
like movie stars and TV stars, the voice actors who portray the characters that you love and hate in video games, you become interested. Well, who is that? Who is so?
Right.
So despite the fact that I think a lot of producers of games never wanted voice actors to have the notoriety that we're beginning to have, because I really think we're just at the beginning of it. We are getting that notoriety now, and soon I think we'll have residuals and all those kinds of things. And you said something to me the first time we met after the show. You said, well, you can retire now and just do conventions. Well, I can't quite.
Yeah.
But
It's close.
But I've been doing conventions.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'll be able to, I don't know if I want to do one a month, but
Sure.
do more and get out and meet the fans. And I'm amazed at the interest fans have in meeting me. Melissa and I, who plays Clem, Melissa Hutchinson.
GameOverGreggy show alum.
Yeah, we were at a convention, and this young lady, she had to be 17, 18, came. She wanted to take a picture with us. We got her, sign the autograph, and she came around the table and stood between us. And I put my hand on her back, and she was shivering because to her, we were such celebrities. And I'm like, oh, I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else. But it lets you know how much that performance affected her, and how much she views us like TV stars, movie stars.
Yeah.
Well, that's my favorite part of being in the place we are now, where we get to interact with all these different voice actors, is like you're saying, it's so new that none of you understand how big of a deal you are. Because I remember Rob Paulson.
Good
when
guy.
he sat there, I'll never forget this, for Comic-Con 2 years ago. They're like, they're sitting me there. I did some interview, somebody, they left, somebody else, blah, blah, blah. People are coming in and out all day. And all right, next up's the Ninja Turtles. And I went, what do you mean the Ninja Turtles? And they're like, the cartoon cast's coming up. I'm like, oh, who's in it? And they were like, oh, it's, Sean Astin. And I'm like, oh, right, Rudy. And then it's this girl. Who's that? You remember Bland from Arrested Development? I'm like, oh, yeah. And then like, Rob Paulson. And I'm like, who's Rob Paulson? And they're like, oh, he was Donatello in the original one, or he was Raphael in the original, and now he's Donatello in this one. I'm like, all right, that's cool. And we're sitting there and we're talking, and in the middle of the interview, Paulson goes, yeah, well, we just come off doing Animaniacs. And if you watch the video, you see me be like, and like all the gears clicking. I'm like, that's fucking Yakko. I'm talking to Yakko. This is Yakko. And so like afterwards, I had 2 seconds with him. Like, you have to come up to Up at Noon. You have to come up to Up at Noon somewhere. He's like, yeah, sure. And so we brought him up for up at noon, and his flight got delayed, of course, because of San Francisco being foggy. And he got there late, but I was like, just tell me what you want. And we got him food, and he's sitting there, and he's eating food out of a box. He's like, you guys are treating me like a rock star. This is awesome. I'm like, you're fucking
Rob, you know, and Rob is a great guy, and they do Animaniacs shows now where they do performances and have orchestras and they're singing and having a great time, and it's very popular. Yeah,
I love that. That's all. I think the fact that we've all grown up now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. To where we're like, yeah, I will pay to meet you. I will pay to go see you guys do this live.
Not only that, but like we've grown up with animation and video games is a huge part of our lives and who we are, right?
Yeah.
And so there's no reason why we can't sort of demand that higher level of talent and storytelling in both those mediums. Largely, I think it's almost a shame too, because I'll watch a lot of animated stuff, and I can't tell you how many times I've watched something and I'm like, oh shit, that's Troy.
Yeah.
That guy, that the Joker in everything now is Troy, and I'm like, oh god, he's so good. But you don't. It sucks a lot, especially for the VO guys, because you guys don't get the face associated with the voice, right? And so
that's changing though.
I hope so, because
are you going to do any
every bit as
mocap
talented
or anything like that? Have you done?
You know, I
anything
don't
like
do a lot of
that?
mocap, and I'm not sure that I ever will. I'll tell you why. Mocap is changing. It used to be, you know, they put you in this suit and they shoot you, and they still do that with most voice actors. But there's a new trend now where they hire you to do the voice acting, and they hire a dancer acrobat to do the mocap, especially on things where they want to have a lot of action.
Yeah.
You're jumping off buildings and tumbling and turning and whatnot. Then they'll just get somebody to play your character,
that part,
play
Right.
the physicality of you, kind of like James Earl Jones as the voice of Darth Vader, but it's some other guy in the suit.
David Prowse.
Spoiler alert! That's my childhood. You're messing with, Roy.
Luke, you are my son.
Ooh, that was good. You guys didn't hear that in here?
Yeah, it's not a good in the
Had a
headphones.
good residence.
Oh.
Residences?
Sure.
Residence?
This is
Resonance.
your job.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know what it is. Yeah.
Tell me
It's crazy though when you find characters like Yakko and then they're also Raphael and you're like, that makes no sense, and you think about it, you're like, oh wait, no, I can hear that. That makes sense. And then you realize that this is a person, and this person can do both of these things.
Oh, yeah.
That happens in anime a lot. Like there's a lot of anime voice actors, especially when they dub it in English, where the leads of many animes is the same guy, and then you like listen to it and you're like, oh man, that's Adam, the Black Ranger. He's actually the dude that like does a lot of the stuff, and it's crazy to me that when you hear that, or like Frank Welker, the voice of Megatron, is also the voice of Abu from Aladdin.
Frank Welker has done more animated voices than almost anybody who's currently working. It's
crazy. Like you can hear all of them, and you're like, these are all so different.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
You know, it's funny because I do the work, but I'm also a fan of my co-workers, and that's one of the best parts, especially when you're working on an animated feature and you're all working together and you just have so much fun. It's so funny because people are riffing off of each other, and the things that never show up, the things that are said that never show up in the cartoon are some of the funniest.
The dirty stuff. It's the real dirty stuff.
I love you mentioned Melissa earlier. She's always my favorite to do panels with, or be at a Comic-Con with, because Melissa is so not Clem. And then she'll always do it just out of the blue in the middle of a panel. She just did it when we were at PlayStation Experience, and she'll kick into Clem mode and say something, and there's always an audible gasp in the crowd.
Yeah.
Like they just put it together of like, who is this woman? Why is she up there? And then she does it, and it's like, oh,
all
my
the memories
God.
of the game come
yeah,
back.
Exactly. So then, I guess in terms of voice acting in your career, what's next for you? Like, you're still doing games and stuff. Do you want to do more? Would you rather do more cartoons? Would you rather do more games? Where does it all fall down?
Well, you know, financially, cartoon series are better, and movies, animated
these
films,
residuals you're talking
because
about.
they're residuals. Right now, even though the gaming industry is the most lucrative business in entertainment,
Because they don't have to pay residuals.
that's not why they're the most
joking.
lucrative.
Teasing.
But
Residuals are for somebody-
residuals are if you're, say, in a movie, every time that movie plays in different places, you get paid a little more. If you're on a television show, you get residuals for when it runs again. or if it runs enough and it goes into syndication, you may be part of the syndication deal and you may get a big payday when the producers get their big payday. Right now, that's not happening in the game world.
And why?
Well, one, gaming companies just recently have started to become union.
Okay.
And two, it has not been in the agreement, and people don't give up money unless there's an agreement, which is why we need strong unions. I don't care what business you're in, because chambers of commerce are like a union for owners. Unions like SAG-AFTRA are a union for actors, and you need to be able to negotiate and bargain. So that's what's on the table now in the gaming world is getting residuals. There's never been a movie that made $1 billion in a day. You had 3 games last year that actually was a day and a half, but $1 billion in a day and a half, and not one of the actors made another nickel other than what they made in their session. And they would say, well, what about the guy that draws? What about the programmers? But they're working every day. You, as an actor, you go in, you work 1 day, maybe 2 days. If you're doing something like The Walking Dead, even though it took a year to do, we're talking about every 6 weeks or so. So you're really talking about 8 or 10 sessions.
Wow.
Maybe 15 with pickups.
Sure.
So you're not working you're not getting paid every day for that. We do get paid well by the hour or by the project, but nothing that you're not going to become a millionaire based on what you're getting paid in a hit video game.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, this has been very fascinating.
Yeah, I know, right?
and educational.
Yeah. But then you got that Comic-Con money. You go there, you get your booth, you get all your signings.
But
the DaveFenoy.com coffee mugs.
Comic-Con doesn't pay anything.
Oh, I know.
Comic-Con
They're too big now.
They're
for
too
sure.
big. They don't need you.
Come to MomoCon this year.
Well, you know what? I am willing to go to any con.
Oh.
I have buddies of mine that go to Australia and Europe and whatnot. Fortunately, I've had it because I was nominated for a BAFTA.
Ooh.
I am a BAFTA-nominated artist.
cool.
I got to go to London for
Yeah.
the ceremony, which is interesting because in England, the BAFTAs are kind of like the Oscars.
Yeah, they're huge.
But
Like the Jumbo
they
Prawns and
recognize their movies, they recognize their television shows, and they recognize games.
Cutting edge.
The Academy here does not recognize games now.
But soon.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
hopefully.
VGXs.
They're going to be
Bringing
unavoidable.
it up.
They're going to be. It's good, like as we get older and people that grew up with games understand the narrative resonance of the games.
Oh, whoa.
Well,
And things of this nature, I think it'll be second nature.
just looking at who's
Knocked it out.
in the gaming business these days, kids that at one point went to film school to become to make music for films or create films or writers for films or directors for films. Now they're directing games and they're making music
they're
for
writing
games.
games,
And
right?
they're
I mean, you got-
writing scripts for games.
You got guys like Gary Whitta who started doing stuff for movies and games.
Love
To him, it's
Gary.
Just is what it is, right?
Hey, Gary.
And now he's writing Star Wars.
Yes. So
Which is
and
unbelievable.
that's believable to me, though, right?
It's awesome.
Because he writes a good story. And
Yeah.
good
Yeah, he
stories
does.
it
Yeah.
can
He
be
does.
anywhere. It doesn't matter what the medium is for that, right?
Absolutely.
And that's awesome. And I do wonder, though, like, I don't know if there's ever going to be that big bang moment where everyone goes, "Ha, we're legit." I think it just is like everything else, where as generations go on, the group mentality will pick one form over the other, and that form will be it is video games now. Our parents just don't realize that, but as they start to die off.
Don't be stealing my lines.
Nick.
Nick. No, but but that's the thing. I mean, the crowd, the consumer will pick the medium. They
The
always do, and
consumer
they have.
actually is picking the
They are.
medium. And I actually think there'd be more news about games now if the people who run the news business were younger or were listening to younger people in their business. Because it is the biggest entertainment business in the world.
Yep.
It's bigger than music and movies combined.
This is true.
Yep. And that's why people are falling away from traditional news, because they're not getting used to
Traditional
going
media,
to
yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
going online, get everything you want. What's happening?
A little twig. I just wanted to pick it up.
That's what Twitter's
Oh,
for.
okay, cool. Just making sure. Good story.
You asked and I told.
Hey, you know what? I asked you, Colin, you delivered.